All right. So the first thing that topic has is the website TVP RBE. Basically, the difference between the two. I'm pretty sure that that shouldn't be too hard for you um, to uh, to to explain the difference between the two, especially given that we're kind of moving towards the RB MPO now. So I don't think that's going to be too hard.
Yeah, I just happen to be working on it actually. So yeah.
Well, the reason, basically, one of the main reasons for this particular part of the topic is just because in casual conversation, we generally interchangeably use, hey, just give me a second.
Yeah. I can't.
Um, yeah, so basically, sometimes the problem for people that have not been around for a while is because in casual conversation you can hear, I guess, all of us to kind of use those two terms interchangeably, like, you know, in the resource-based economy, in the Venus Project, kind of as though it is the same thing, which it really is not. So that's the reason why that's there. So that's kind of the first question, really, just what is the difference between those two, or why do we still kind of differentiate between the two?
Okay. Well, so reason for differentiation. So obviously, RBE is an actual like legal entity, and it's like, well, it is a registered NPO that can be used it's a great tool, and it can be used in a lot of different ways. One way is money fundraising. So uh, and that's what RBE, the legal entity, is for. It's a vehicle to fundraise and to galvanize people. The RBE, the concept is resource-based economy and resource-based economics, and that's sort of in its own academic realm. And that's when people say RBE, I think that's what they're referring to. And the Venus Project is just the umbrella term, the for everything, including future by design. When you're speaking about legal entities, then when you say TVP, that refers to both uh, Future by Design, the NPO, and RBE, the NPO. And of course, a Future by Design only means it's just an NPO, and the RBE is both the NPO and a concept. So yeah, it is. I guess it is a little confusing when you look at it that way, but it's uh, so I mean, personally, the way I talk about it is when I use the term RBE, I use it purely in its like sort of academic form, like the resource-based economics. And when I speak about the website, even the RBE website, I just say the Venus Project.
Yeah, I mean the main difference here, obviously, now with the MPO resource-based economy, which is now public, which, you know, really wasn't so much in the forefront before, now even adds to maybe the importance of having those, let's say, defined what is what. But yeah, just the big thing with the change, the difference between the Venus Project as an organization, whereas a resource-based economy, if we talk about it as a concept, you know, is something that that we want to achieve as a goal. So really, kind of the Venus Project as an organization wants to make itself obsolete. From that point of view, that once you get to a resource-based economy, there's no longer a need for an organization called the Venus Project. point of view. But yeah, so yeah, so just something that I guess to keep in mind, because a lot of times we, like I said, in the conversation, a lot of times we use that interchangeably. And you hear, Jacques lectures, same thing, and Roxanne, same thing. So when it's kind of in that sense, it's used interchangeably. But yeah, just to make sure that people know that there's a differentiation from the very concept of the Venus Project as an organization, as opposed to research-based economy as an idea. And now, of course, we have the RBE also as an MPO, which is really now going to be an umbrella for everything. So, which is going to, I think, make everything a little bit easier in some ways.
Yeah. And just as a side thing, so last I heard from Roxanne was that because there was a legal problem with interactions between TVP and RBE as an MPO. So this, the issue was maybe RBE can't talk about TVP because then it would be kind of like illegal, because you're using a nonprofit to support a profit institution, right? So but it turns out, at least according to this, is the best of my knowledge, that's not the case. That RBE can still talk about TVP as its own entity without having any conflicts, any legal conflicts.
Yeah, I know that was definitely one of the things that was considered, and that Roxanne, for obvious reasons, wanted to get right, so that there wouldn't be any kind of problem regarding that. And then there's also, I don't know exactly if that's also something that they've already finished addressing or whatnot, but it was also the question of, well, if Roxanne is the owner of this and then also on the board of MPO, or however that goes, if there's going to be some conflict there or not, I would assume that they have find a way to get that done the way that it has to be done. But yeah, I've also been kind of out of it for the last couple of months. Like I said, we haven't. I mean, I've chatted with Roxanne up and down, but not really extensively like we usually do. So yeah, I'm kind of out of the loop a little bit too. Anyway, okay, yeah. So that's just kind of the basic stuff here. I don't know if you got. I don't know if you have any questions in regards to the stuff from the website, and from the point of view of the two, website entries, the Venus Project and resource-based economy. I think that's pretty basic stuff, but still, just so that I ask you.
All right, 1 second. Right before I answer that, I want to plug my computer in just so it doesn't accidentally die. 1 moment.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I'm going to do that too. So,
okay.
Yeah, good call. There's not really a plug near here. I just found out because of this weird position that I put myself in. But there might be enough battery anyway. So we'll see. If not, I'm gonna have to jump over this little makeshift desk that I created for myself.
I remember there were a bunch of different times when we had other sessions, and I would go to a coffee shop because I don't like staying home, and then it would close down, and I would be out there with my laptop, and the coffee shop is closed. I'll be in the cold, like with my laptop. So that's,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, no, this was I displaced myself here on purpose now, so yeah.
gotcha. So okay, the websites. I looked over the RBE website, and it looks like it has everything that it should have. You know, there is a clear mission statement. You know, there's also some cool stuff on the side. You know, like in introduces like some members of the staff of the engineering team.
Mhm.
I think there's other things should be included. Like it should include other teams. Like for example, because I'm not too clear on all the structures. I know the AEC is the the main thing. It's the actual engineering team, and but there's also like other teams, like the one that Daniel's a part of, which is the networking. Networking and software engineering and stuff like that. That stuff isn't there. Like the only thing that's in the website is just AEC stuff. So I think the website should definitely include all
Yeah.
the other teams and other aspects. There's a tremendous amount of stuff that can be put into it over time.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can imagine that that's going to be done. I would also guess a little bit that that there's probably going to be a slow um you know by segments kind of transferring certain things from from TVP stuff that teams that are right now on Trello and global teams that are probably as needed going to be migrated really to more to the resource based economy. I assume also that there's going to be um, a board of directors or board of what extended board of what you call I forgot one of I guess the first rung is like the board of directors, and then the second one is kind of
Project managers, sort of.
no, not really. There's well, yeah, that too, but I mean more. What's the word? Board of
Trustees.
no, I think that's a different thing, but just people that consult on certain topics and whatnot. They're not necessarily always there. Um,
I
uh,
think there is a term for it, but yeah, you're talking, yeah, just consultants, like just people
yeah,
that subject matter
there,
expert.
yeah, there's a term for it that I can't pull out of my brain right now. But anyway, yeah, so there's that. So I assume those things are gonna pop up as we go. I assume that some of the things that are pertaining to transparency are gonna be up there too that are probably not there yet. Um, and things like that. So I'm sure that there's going to be more additions. I feel like I feel that the reason why AEC obviously team is there as a priority is just because that has the most to do directly with the projects for Center for Resource Management, which is the main goal of that website right now to try and push for that. But anyway, yeah, I'm sure that there's going to be more and more um, migration, I guess, over time to that MPO. And I was last time I was talking to Roxanne about this, which is now arguably already a while ago. So I don't know if that's still the plan. But I think the plan was that to migrate or join or whatever that's called, the Future by Design MPO into this one to merge, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. And apparently that can be done too, with some provisions, et cetera, et cetera. So that would probably, I would assume, again, without too much information on this topic, but it would probably be treated similarly to the Venus project, from the point of view that it would be like a separate, like a sub project. Okay, this is, the work that's been done directly towards, making the major motion picture. So that might be another project within the resource-based economy. So, obviously it would just make more sense from the point of view of having, everything kind of together and as robust as possible to kind of support research-based economy as a MPO. Again, I don't know if that's still the plan. I don't know if things have changed in that regard, but yeah.
Gotcha. Well,
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, no, I'm clear on the differences. That was just the only thing that I kind of noticed. But yeah, I mean, over time and with more staff and more people working on it, it's going to grow into, all the other teams are going to grow with it, and yeah, and then, but it's really good, and the in actually right now, which tomorrow I might have some time for it later today, but we're trying to get. Are you familiar with AdWords? It's so when you go on Google, there's usually like some stuff with ads on it. So those, usually companies would pay money to have that sort of feature, but it turns out that Google supports NPOs with so
sorry, I just got a couple of guys leaving. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, anyway, so Google does support NPOs in a variety of different ways, and it's going to be we will be able to get $10,000 a month to support and like advertisements for this website very soon, and that then and I know let's see, I think your wife is the one who's in charge of the website. No.
No. What do you mean?
Bo told me that she's in charge of the website. Like, who's the admin of RBE?
Of the website? No. No, that's definitely not.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, anyway,
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, because I know that there was a group of people that were working on that website. I know maybe one or two members, because I think one of them was from Slovenia, but I have no idea who is running the website actually. No, I don't.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm actually at this time trying to get a hold of them, but yeah, soon we will have $10,000 a month in ad revenue, not revenue, ad budget,
yeah.
that then we will use to support the RBE website, and that tool would be handed over to the to whoever is whatever team is running the website, and so yeah.
Is that like a Google? Is that like a Google sponsored quote unquote ad space that they give?
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, it's a tool that you can buy. I mean, like, for example, all the big companies buy it. So the way it works, I mean, I've studied it a little bit, is you can pay. You can take a term, like when you're doing like a search engine optimization, you can take a term like resource based or something, right? And then you can say, I'm going to pay $1 to make sure that I am when somebody types resource and based both on the search bar, I'm going to be up there. But if someone pays $2, then they're going to be above you. So, but anyway, so you're competing with how much money you have. But with Google, with this Google program, we'll have some money to compete with. A decent amount of money, actually. Like 10,000 is not a small amount. So that would be really cool. So this tool will be available soon, and there are so many different avenues. You can go on the fundraising team and see kind of like a little bit of what other things are happening. So yeah, there are some cool things going on. Unfortunately, I don't have I wish I I won the lottery or something so I could just sit down and do this. But
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Well, you're not the only one wishing that. Yeah. I mean, by now, I wish you would get it. You know, I would be fine with that. But yeah, I think there's more of us. There's more of us like that. But yeah, okay. Good stuff. All right, so let's go to what really kind of this session boils down to. Is basically just document relevant and irrelevant topics. So, and that's kind of, I guess that's kind of an important one. So, so I'll drop you the link for it, and we can just kind of quickly go through it. I'm reasonably sure that none of the stuff here is going to be too controversial for you anyway, but just to kind of put some things out there, and maybe also a little bit about just the attitude of the whole document, and for us, meaning the Venus Project, and for us in TVP support, what does it mean if some topic is relevant and irrelevant? Because, you know, obviously, if somebody asks you about a topic and you outright tell them, hey, this is an irrelevant topic, then, you know, not the best way to establish first contact. Right. So when we talk about, you know, relevant and irrelevant topics here, we always, you know, talk about it from the point of view, is it relevant to the project, not to the person? So, you know, so some of these topics here can be relevant for people, for supporters, for volunteers, and even for POCs, and that's fine. But as long as we know that these are not relevant from the point of view of the platform of the Venus Project, and you know, to then for some of these to not be shared on TVP pages, you know, official, quote unquote, official support group pages, groups and pages, sorry. You know, and why, and so that we can also explain that to maybe people that want to post about something that that is not relevant, and as far as why that's not relevant, again, to the project and not to them personally. Okay, so the way that we've broken this down is the first part is about relevant topics, and then that one is broken down into relevant topics that agree with RBE concepts that we talk about, and then the part that disagree with RBE concepts, but they're brought up a lot, and so they're, you know, we still engage in the discussion regarding those topics. So just to go through these, I think these are probably going to be pretty obvious for you, so I don't know if we're going to spend a lot of time on them. You know, first one, science, anything about science, scientific method, mechanistic point of view, stuff like that, obviously important for us. So those topics are always welcome to be discussed, either groups or pages. New technologies, inventions, automation in general, things like that. New discoveries, whatever it is, you know, can be used. I think that's probably one of the teams that we don't have, that we're missing, people that are kind of looking deliberately for those kind of topics. But anyway, so, but that's always, let's say that's always something that we engage in. And then inadequacies of language, general semantics, you know, the importance of those things for discussion and for sharing ideas. Next one is knowledge of logical fallacies, cognitive biases, stuff like that. Trying to avoid that ourselves, obviously. There are some good examples, videos, and other stuff out there. Some of those we used in the orientation too, if you remember, in the scientific method part. And then the last one, climate change. I mean, it comes up pretty often. Again, that's not really the primary focus of the project, but obviously it's also one of the driving forces from the point of view that, well, we need to change to stop that destruction. So that's also one of the things that's listed here. Any questions or anything maybe to add, or you feel that is missing, or I think these are pretty straightforward.
No, everything's pretty straightforward, sort of like do's and don'ts, and the irrelevant subjects maybe not to go over, things to not really kind of dwell on, like like invalid conspiracy theories and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we'll go over some of those too. But these were just kind of the first part, or the first batch that pretty much that we're supporting, let's say, or promoting in some way. Okay, so and then from that part, so that's the first part, meaning that those are relevant to us, and then also they agree, let's say, or support the concepts of RBE. And then there's the second part here that are the ones that disagree with RBE concepts in some form, meaning either part of it or whatnot. A lot of them mostly disagree with generally the mechanistic point of view and how the world works, let's say, as a broad statement, as you'll see. And then, like this one, like it states here in red, these topics are often polarizing. So generally for us as POCs, we should avoid or should not post about them and opening discussions about them in TVP support official social media pages and groups. So we do discuss these ideas in the discussion groups a lot of times. So that is in the hopes, I guess, of better understanding, being more effective in trying to answer questions about it. So if people ask about these things, we do try to answer, and we do try to kind of point out why TVP disagrees with them, or what are some of the maybe reasons why we feel that they don't have the validity that the scientific method has. Anyway, so some of these are here, and then we can stop at any of them if you want. So one is acceptance of free will, and then also stuff that are kind of connected to it, meaning stuff about souls, higher consciousness, and then auras, chakras, things like that are generally connected to the Cartesian dualist point of view that we are that there's a ghost in the machine somewhere that's doing things for us, etc. There's a couple of links there too, but generally they're in contradiction some way to the mechanistic point of view or to scientific method on these things. So, but as you've probably undoubtedly noticed, this is pretty common stuff that we talk about
Right.
in comments or discussions or whatnot, especially social media and elsewhere. So that's one group. The second group, which is kind of, I guess, similar in some ways, religions just in general, religious beliefs. There's obviously here a broad spectrum of stuff. Some of it is more, let's say, destructive than others. So they kind of range from, from let's say, mildly annoying or stuff that's not that big of a deal to serious problems in the world. So again, usually no way to confirm or deny the claims, or just people are not accepting of let's say, evidence of problematic ways of thinking, etc. So again, yeah, we're gonna get, we get asked about it a lot, and there's no secret to people that have listened to enough Jacques lectures. I think they pretty much get to the gist of Jacques not really supporting religion in general. But yeah, so these still come up. And then there's stuff in the next group here that we have, like sacred geometry, astrology, alchemy, stuff like that. Again, some of them are more still around more than others, but generally, yeah, this thing comes up too. The sacred geometry part, mostly just because people think that there's some kind of hidden meaning behind things being circular, and and since a lot of the stuff that Jacques designed is circular or at least curved, etc. People often kind of deduct from that there's some kind of a connection there, let's say, that there isn't any. And then basically
circles are holy. I don't know about this conspiracy. Like, I mean, I know there was a lot of them out there, but like I don't know about this one. So circles are like holy or something. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, there's certain allegedly there is certain geometrical configurations that are that I guess influence the surrounding areas. Like, some people believe that if you put like fruit in like under a pyramid shape or something like that, that it never goes bad and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a lot of you get exposed to a lot of interesting things.
I get the idea. I don't. That's a pretty easy one to test. Just take a bunch of apples and they're a pyramid shape stick and see what happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the beginning, let's say, of it. But yeah, and then there's some of the obvious properties of mathematics too, where you have where you have a certain formula that creates, if you put it in a function, it creates a certain pattern, and then people are like, oh, this, so anyway, just to not go into too much, but a lot of it has to do with with the circle and how the circles are arranged a lot of times. So that's why people infer that that has something to do with with why Jacques designed things circular and the circular shapes. Anyway, yeah. So, and then the next group here is just generally all sorts of paranormal phenomena and supernatural events. A lot of times this kind of almost goes into the category of being completely irrelevant, but again, depending on what what that is, people can connect all sorts of things together. But yeah, again, it's hard to no way to confirm or deny things like that. So for us, that's not really something to engage in too much. And then the last one here does come up a lot, which is generally free energy type of things, perpetual motion machines, cold fusion, from the point of view of the ones that you see on YouTube, not the actual research into potentially getting to that point. But there's a lot of YouTube links where people do magic things with electricity generating. Anyway, I'm sure that you've seen your fair share of those. But
I've watched Alex Jones.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, that's anyway. So yeah, so generally that's another one that kind of breaks the laws of physics and whatnot. And also, it's again one of the things that confirming or denying those kind of things is not really something that should be up to us anyway, because we don't really have the resources for that kind of thing. Anyway, so but again, yeah, that does come up because people, ask if Jacques had some kind of miracle machine for making energy out of nothing, or stuff like that, which is quite common, let's say. Anyway, so those would be under the relevant topics, just from the point of view that they either support TVP, or if they don't, they come up often enough that we engage in discussion and try to answer, I guess, people's questions or concerns or whatnot. So, but a lot of times they bleed through into this second part, which is the irrelevant topics. And so this last part here, there's a little bit of a disclaimer, I guess, that we have, that generally, if people want to engage in these topics in their private time, that's fine. So if they want to hold that different view, and they have a passion for trying to find Bigfoot or whatever it is, at the end of the day, it's not really hurting me personally. But again, as points of contact, will generally be viewed at least as some kind of representative, or at least somebody that has relevant information to share. So even though we know that in a legal sense we do not hold any of that, we should try and not mix basically our own interests or beliefs or views with the stuff that's relevant to TVP. So so some of the topics that we're going to quickly cover, not really cover, but just mention, there's mostly the reason, the two reasons why we don't engage in these topics is the two that we have listed here. So one is that we really don't have the resources or otherwise to kind of try and test all these things that people want to talk about and test. So that's really not our thing to do. So if they want to test and prove something, then they should they should carry the burden of proving it or not. So this kind of claims, and we don't really have the resources to try and disprove any of these. And then the second part is really kind of the more important too, that I feel like that's kind of what I came to, because I didn't really go too much into conspiracy theories, but I did get pulled into it just because online there's so much of it in the beginning, and then at a certain point you just see that focusing on that kind of stuff won't really help you reach RBE at first as a one thing, and then they're also spend a lot of your time on it, and then lastly, even if something gets proven to be true, what is the consequences of that? What changes? Generally, nothing too big changes, even if it gets known that something was actually an inside job or whatever you want to call it. Nothing really changes because of it. There's usually some poor guy gets on trial or whatnot, somebody gets the blame, and then that's pretty much it. So anyway, so those are pretty much the reasons why generally we try not to engage in this. And if you want to, obviously you can, or if you want to kind of disprove things, you can, but I feel like you're probably far enough by now to know that it's not worth your time to spend.
Try and disprove chemtrails.
Yeah, or many of the other things that we have listed here.
Right. Bigfoot. Yeah, no, well, that's... Yeah, I don't think it's really... like as far as like PLCs are concerned, that like and from what I see, like from PLCs on Facebook, like they really like don't talk about this sort of thing. Like they're not like, you know, to disprove it. Like one just kind of stays away
Yeah.
from this sort of stuff, which is really the way I'd like to see it. Like there's just no reason to kind of, you know, scoop down to that level.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean and there's really little progress to be made in that kind of thing. I just, you know, I've spent so much time on some of those things back in the beginning of everything that and really have gotten zero results for it for the most part. So so in the beginning, maybe for some people it's no. In the beginning, for some people it's probably interesting to do and to try and like improve, I guess, um, their arguments or their, you know, their approach to try and talk to people. So it's kind of interesting in the beginning, but then you know, after a certain period of time, when you see that there's really not much to be gained and all that, then you're like, yeah, no, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, uh so we got stuff here listed that that we can just kind of quickly go through as an example of list or a list of those topics. Just you got, I mean, really kind of many of these are conspiracies, but you have some of the most notorious ones, I guess. First, like stuff about hidden societies like Illuminati, Freemasons, New World Order type of stuff, and then terrorist attacks, which are pretty popular now. 9/11 obviously still, you know, going strong. UFOs, generally anything about aliens, crop circles, stuff like that. We got Bigfoot here too. Uh, a lot of stuff that bleeds from what we were talking about up, you know, up above about soul and whatnot. Generally, spirituality um, can go pretty deep down the rabbit hole. So yeah, so some of those things are just so far out of the realm that there's no sense in participating in that. Now, some of the things that are mentioned here is collective evolution, and some of the other, let's say, stuff that you kind of that we see a lot of on online, like having YouTube videos or YouTube channels that cover, you know, spirit science and stuff like that, that have all sorts of craziness there, uh, fall under this category as well. And then stuff about alternative medicine and homeopathy and diets. Most of this stuff is just also, you know, just you obviously we're not doctors or we don't have the medical expertise and whatnot. So I generally just try to avoid those kind of things. And then a lot of the conspiracies about pharmaceutical companies and legal or illegal drugs and cures for cancer. A lot of that kind of stuff is yeah, it's really kind of hard to really talk about, especially if you don't have like medical background, etc. Um, and depending again how much time you want to spend in research to those things, then obviously you can if you want to. But again, for us, we mostly for all of these things, the attitude is getting to a resource-based economy should, you know, take away those problems from the point of view of not having some kind of monetary incentive to screw people over, etc., etc. Anyway, and then GMOs and stuff about Monsanto or just generally GMO stuff. Vaccines, chemtrails, climate engineering that you already mentioned, and things like that. Again, that comes up fairly common as well. So I'm sure that we missed a lot, but yeah. I don't know if there's much to add or if you have anything to ask about this stuff.
No, all clear. Just pretty common sense.
Okay, yeah. All right, so this last part here is basically just some of the, let's say, other projects or organizations or movements, depending on what they are, here that that we just want to kind of try to not mix with the sorry, yeah, no. That we just want to avoid confusion on, because, well, just by default, there is a certain amount of bleed through that's going to come, just because the Zeitgeist movies obviously are permanently going to have in Jacques and Roxanne and the Venus Project. So there's no way to avoid people being confused to some degree as far as what does that mean, etc. But for us, again, just to not really even engage too much in that, just not promoting any materials on TVP official groups or pages or videos. So some of the ones that are, let's say, the biggest ones mentioned here, TZM obviously as a movement, whole Money Free Party, which is kind of all over the place. A lot of people in Money Free Party are supporters, of the Venus Project, but then the party itself differs wildly depending on the location in the world, and some of them kind of do their own thing, etc. Free World Charta is one of them. Ubuntu Movement, the Brazil Project, which is pretty much like a direct knockoff of the Venus Project. But anyway, so those are just some of the ones that are quite common out there. And then, but basically, this should cover any kind of hybrid RBEs or any kind of RBE town or transitional RBE pages, groups, movements, etc. So I think that's pretty clear too. But again, just to make sure, I know that there's a lot of people out there that pretty much just support like any of these groups, just because they're all kind of, from their point of view, they're all RBE oriented approximately, so they support all of them. That's fine. But again, just for us as POCs, just so that we try not to confuse people as far as what's what. Oh, and then then there's one exception to this here is that there might be some organizations that we don't generally really support or promote, like Anonymous, which is the one that's here listed, and then also in some areas Money Free Party. If they would have Roxanne or somebody else from TVP on a podcast or as a interview or something like that, then obviously we will share that material because it features TVP people, and so a lot of times that will be from their website. So we had people on Anonymous that were there for interviews, etc. So we do share those. So really, kind of the rule of thumb is if you see it on the main website or on the Venus Project Global, then it's good to share. So that's pretty much a given. So, but then if you're not sure about anything, or if you find, let's say, if you find an organization or something that you're not sure of, then you can always drop a link or ask in the chat and just say, hey, I found this and this. What do you guys think about it? Did anybody try to contact them? And then and then either we have or not, and we can have a discussion about it and see what's what. Maybe even refer it to Roxanne if that's the case.
Right. So I don't know about all the other ones. In the case of for example, like Anonymous. Anonymous is, for all practical purposes, is a terrorist organization. So it's there is some danger in associating yourself with it. That's not to say that in the future there maybe some level of collaboration might occur, but for all practical purposes, like, yeah, it isn't, they're kind of a terrorist organization, and it's dangerous to kind of associate with them. And they're not really an organization, they're extremely decentralized. Like like, I've seen two videos. I've seen one video where they said we support the Venus Project, and I've seen another video which it says you're trying to militarize us. And so it's really like they're extremely decentralized, and which is the same problem Zeitgeist movement suffers from. Zeitgeist movement is awesome, but like they do, like, just recently they had Peter Joseph was invited to speak on like their Z Day, which is really cool that they do this type of outreach and constantly talk about RBE. At the same time, the Zeitgeist movement will not be able to actually. They have an idea to accomplish the same thing that we're doing with the Center for Resource Management, but they call it something else. They call it I don't know what they call it. They call it something else. But it is like, the way I see it, it's very unlikely for that to be achieved when you're so decentralized. So like, we work really hard to have centralization, and we're struggling with it because of lack of finance. So I don't see that, unfortunately, happening for them, so long as they say decentralized. But but we should collaborate when the opportunity presents itself. Like if we can have speakers going back and forth, that would be great.
Well, that's pretty much what was done with the with the Anonymous. Just because there are certain people, or there were certain people, let's say, within Anonymous that were very much in support, and so we were able to kind of use it as a platform, really, to just kind of get the idea out there, and talk about it without really some kind of a structural collaboration. You know what I mean? More from the point of view of just trying to reach people, in that group, because their Facebook page, has like, I don't know, 7 and something million people. So there is a lot of reach from that point of view. But as far as some kind of collaboration from the point of view that that the two organizations would come together, it seems highly unlikely with Anonymous, just because, like you said, they're kind of all over the place, and there's not really a structure or a person or a governing, quote unquote, body that you could come to an arrangement with,
So
that's
apparently,
not,
apparently, JB. So I don't know if this is kind of a side thing, but he said like he has like he's the liaison for being able to speak to Anonymous. I don't know if he's being serious or not, but that would be an interesting point of contact. Well, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I had you muted. I mean, I had my mic muted. Yeah, I mean, that's I mean, there isn't. I mean, you can have a liaison. I mean, I know people that I can contact and initiate some kind of contact to try and kind of get something off the ground, but that's not the same as a liaison. From just from the point of view of how they operate, that's really, you really can't have a liaison.
Right.
So you can have contact with somebody that in certain area might support what you're doing, but then, like you said yourself, in another area, they won't support you because there's another set of people there that think you're a new world order and you're gonna, you know, enslave everybody. So so there's really, you know, like you said, within the organization there's not a lot of consensus about what it is, you know, of what they're about, mainly because they're generally not for things but more against things. So, you know,
you know what's really interesting? They have successfully launched several DDoS attacks, like hackings and you know, like compromising several systems, including Sony back in 2011. So it's really weird how it works, but when there is an objective, they can actually accomplish it. Like they can do shit, like they can do some really like out there stuff. Like they can attack massive multi-million-dollar conglomerates and do serious damage. But it looks like one, yeah, they are, no matter what, how you look at it, they're decentralized. There is no person you can talk to, so it's not possible to collaborate. And but when like I guess when they work like a colony of bees. Like when something attacks, like when there is a target, they can actually do stuff. But like when there is no overarching goal, you can't do anything with them.
yeah.
So they're an interesting group. Like
Yeah.
but yeah, they're like, as far as like, you know, communicating with them like publicly, then yeah, I'm against that, because they are, no matter how you slice it, they're not very reputable.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, I don't think there's much room for that from that point of view. And like I said, again, it's not really, even from a practical point of view, I don't really think it's doable. Even, you know, I guess even if Anonymous themselves, if some people in Anonymous would want to support a certain project, and want to make that like into an anonymous thing, I don't think they'd be able to do that, just because there's so many people in that organization that think of things differently, that, you know, you just can't really get that kind of consensus. Whereas getting consensus about what we are against is a lot easier, you know, because you see some kind of injustice and some shit happening, and they're like, you know, we're going to do something about it. And so you can get people on that bandwagon of you know, who do we want to be against, it is a lot easier. But when you're trying to get people to stand for something, or to propose, you know, something new, or to improve on something, or something that hasn't been done before, well, shit, that's, you know, that is a lot more difficult, because people have their own 2 cents about everything, and you know, mostly, as we know, people generally operate mostly with opinions as opposed to with you know, data and other stuff, and that's, yeah, that's a problem. Anyway, so yeah, so those are just kind of the things for all of us, I guess, to keep in mind. But yeah, just for the purpose of us, from the point of view of being points of contact and sharing information, you know, I try to remain as clean as possible without, you know, without those kind of influences, because it's also very hard to know what it is you're sharing and how accurate it is and whatnot. Whereas for us, I guess it's relatively clear, you know, what is relevant and what is not relevant. So, and that's kind of what I like, really. Although it's hard to maybe achieve, and it's hard to get, you know, to have people on that bandwagon, but it's still, you know, it still has, still having a clear objective for something, is you know, it seems like what is the hardest thing to do, and once, I mean, which means that it's worth doing. But yeah, it does take some more time. Anyway, okay, so yeah, those are pretty much the points for this. I mean, you've been around now for a pretty long time, so I assume a lot of this is just kind of reiterating some of the things that you already know. But yeah, I mean, it's always good to kind of go over it again. Even for me, it's good to kind of go over some of this stuff here. And usually I get some new information always. You know, somebody asks about something or other and suggests something that maybe I haven't taken into account before. So it's always a pretty interesting discussion. Even more so when it's a group, whereas now that we're just kind of one-on-one. Okay. I mean, any questions about any of the stuff that we talked about here, mainly pertaining to the to this document, because everything else I think is pretty clear.
Now, as far as the document goes, everything's clear.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the last thing here is really the competent democracy. The reason, I guess, the reason why we have that that topic here too is just more from the presentation point of view, I guess, because it kind of just puts together everything that. Oh, yeah, the battery is not gonna hold up. I have to do some light gymnastics for a little bit. Give me a second to get to that. Get to that charge. All right. Good. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. I mean, one of the, like I said, one of the reasons that we put that in here, it's kind of a summary, really, of mostly all of the topics that came before it, and also it's kind of presented, I guess, from a little different point of view, just from the way that Jacques talks about it, because he's talking about you know, competent democracy, which is generally, let's say, with a more measured approach, maybe not as hard hitting as, let's say, he usually is, but it kind of rounds up all of the topics that we talked about. So maybe one of the reasons, or maybe one of the questions to start off with, maybe what's the difference between a participatory democracy and a competent democracy? What's the reason why, let's say, we would advocate for a competent democracy as opposed to participatory?
Participatory democracy, whether it's a direct democracy or a republic, relies on the it is restricted by well, a standard democracy is the rule is mob rule. A republic is a rule of law, but these laws are not scientific and are used only when it is not possible to engineer a way out of a problem. So whereas a competent democracy is the application of science and technology to the social structure. So that's why we advocate for competent democracy, which is another way of saying the application of science and technology to society.
Maybe instead, yeah, no, that's a good answer. One of the things that I guess, or the questions that I feel is maybe relevant to try and present this differentiation. Maybe can you think of an example that is instead of this big scale of the whole society or a whole democratic system. Maybe what is a way to give an example of how, let's say, a decision based on competence is superior to a decision made by just a number of people.
Okay, so this is one that I came across very recently. I was in the street and I was speaking to a coffee shop owner. And we were on a one-way street, and he said he wasn't happy with the cars flying by very quickly when there are children playing, and he wants to fix that problem. So let's just take this situation. A participatory democracy would come out with a solution as such. Go to the city council, request permission to put a placard that says 15 miles per hour on, like, the speed limit. That is a legal restriction, and if it becomes that if you break the law, that you are disincentivized from breaking the law because you would get a fine. But it's not an actual it's not a technical stop. Like, so if I can afford breaking the law, I'm going to break it. The other method would be, a participatory democracy born method would be to actually have some kind of a physical restriction that would prevent the car from going over 15 miles an hour. Whether it is some kind of a device like a bump that senses cars and comes up and blocks them, or maybe developing cars so that they can't break the speed limit once they're within a certain zone. That would be something that would be born out of a competent democracy. So I guess that's an example.
Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, that's pretty much what I was shooting for. Yeah, I mean, because I guess when we're talking about these, when we're talking about competent democracy as a holistic system, I guess, for a whole country or something like that, I guess it's usually a little too abstract for people, and they generally don't realize that that there are certain aspects of their life where they're already using competent democracy rather than a participatory democracy, and generally we don't realize that, I guess. And so one of the examples for that in particular, that, let's say, I guess vast majority of people have done that, is that when something breaks down, in your house or in your car or whatnot, you're generally going to call, you know, somebody that has experience in that area. So some kind of an expert, or whatever you want to call it, somebody that has fixed things like that before. And so in that realm, I think people can relatively easily understand that, you know, you want to have somebody that's going to be competent in fixing your problems, whether or not with a car or otherwise. And so I think that's a pretty good. I think that's a pretty good example to use. And the vast majority of people has been in that situation, and they will kind of nod and understand that that is something that they want to do. Come on, girl, you can do it. So I think that's a good maybe example, or something else from that, from that realm. And generally people will understand that they won't make a survey and put their friends to a vote as far as what they're going to do with the car. If it's a group of friends that nobody's a mechanic, they're likely not going to do that. Anyway, so okay, maybe one of the question that's maybe not, I mean, it's not really addressed in the lecture itself, but anyway, maybe what is the reason, or what kind of benefit do you see in even talking about a competent democracy, as opposed to why not just call it a research-based economy?
Why speak about competent democracy instead of resource-based economy?
Yeah.
Well, resource-based economy is kind of divided into two parts. So one is the technical aspect of being able to manage resources to meet the needs of everyone within the economy. The other part is a sociological aspect of being able to come to an agreement as a society that all resources should be considered common heritage of all people within that economy. So that's the two parts. So what the advantage is of talking about competent democracy instead of speaking only about RBE concepts is because you have to address that sociological aspect, that this cannot be achieved unless all resources are considered common heritage. So that's, like I said, that's why it's also important to talk about the democratic sociological component of RBE.
Yeah. Also, what about maybe from the? I mean, yeah, that's a good point. But what about from the, let's say, language point of view, from semantic point of view, or from the communication point of view? Do you see any benefits or any pros and cons from that point of view?
In terms of what exactly?
As opposed to, yes, I mean, is there any benefit maybe in the attempt to use, competent democracy as a phrase instead of a resource-based economy? Do you feel like there's maybe some
Right. Well, it's easier because people understand the word competent and democracy put together. It's a little bit easier. Competent democracy, what does that mean? Well, if I didn't know about all of this, and I heard competent democracy, I would think good government. Government that respects people. That's ethical. So it's easier to associate with it than to just go ahead and be given the phrase resource-based economy, which sounds very pseudo, intellectual and stuff, and some people will be drawn up, kind of put aside by that. So yeah, that from like just linguistic, point of view of it, then yeah, then using the term common democracy has value.
Yeah, I think so too. I think maybe that's one of the things that we don't necessarily use enough. Maybe, I mean, there's of course a two, there's two sides, obviously, to every problem, at least two sides, usually more. But just from this point of view, obviously we kind of promote talking about a resource-based economy just because we want that phrase to get out there, and we want that proposal to get out there. We want, generally we want people to identify with that, with something new, with a new proposal, with something new to try. But I feel like it's you know, for people that that maybe feel like, you know, democracy as a word and as an idea is kind of superior to anything else that's come before, and have a maybe stronger emotional attachment to it. I think it could pique their interest when you're talking about, you know, what kind of version of democracy would you want to see, maybe, or what are some of the ways that you could adapt democracy so that it would be more competent. And maybe people, you know, I think some of the people might view that as an interesting concept and might start to ask themselves, okay, you know, yeah, what, you know, how would you try to do that? And I think that might, for some people, that might be the kind of in between bridge, from a linguistic point of view, that wouldn't trigger them, like you said before, when you talk about resource-based economy. Well, I don't know anything about that, you know. As opposed to when you're talking about a version of democracy, well, everybody, even the people that don't have a clue of what democracy is, they feel like they do, so they will engage in the discussion, maybe. So yeah, it might be, you know, it seems like it's one of the tools to also, from a communication point of view, to maybe try and reach people that that, you know, resource-based economy, or the Venus Project is the name of the organization, just by default might be something that they don't like, that, you know, that it just kind of pushes them away from some kind of a negative reference from before. Yeah, okay. Was there anything from this lecture that you had, maybe that you wanted to mention, or was there anything that that you wanted to, you know, talk about? Not, I have a few more things to go through here.
No, I mean, I'm all clear on everything. Yeah, that's it. Just as a side thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Recently, I went to this thing. There was like it's an event that takes place in the woods. I'm in Washington State, by the way, in a city called Spokane right now. I've been here for the last month, and then and there's like, you know, parties in the woods and stuff like that. And then I went up to one, and it's surprising how many people know about the Venus Project. Like, you know, I don't usually get that. Like, I'll ask someone, hey, like, are you familiar with this term, with this organization? They're like, no. And then then I found out, like, well, you go to a place like this and everybody knows, like, what, everybody's heard of it. Everybody knows of, you know, like Jock and Roxanne and stuff. But they have some massive misunderstandings. Like, there are some massive, like, annoyingly huge gaps in you know, kind of knowledge of what it actually is. I've heard everything ranging from conspiracy theories to to an actual city. And then, you know, every now and then you'll meet someone who says, so do you have a city, or do you have a city yet that I can move to? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
So,
that's a standard array of of stuff that you hear. I mean, from my personal experience, I feel like with the, let's say, the group of uh people that is, like, I guess, like, kind of a blanket statement of, you know, people that are kind of outdoorsy, let's say, which
yeah.
means they either like travel, they kind of, you know, they go out in nature, you know, hiking, climbing, people that you know, have no problem of kind of, let's say, going out of their comfort zone of home, and you know, the immediate town that they're in. I generally find that they're, you know, a lot more susceptible to, you know, any kind of you know, any kind of ideas along the lines of what we're talking about, and generally they will have heard uh, in greater numbers, let's say, than average, about these ideas that we talk about. And it seems that, you know, that does have to do with you know, with the interests, I guess, that they have, which take them outside of their norm, let's say, of the norm of society, and so they're more likely to meet people that are also kind of traveling around, that are also more outdoorsy, and a lot of times those people are exposed to more things just by just by the amount of environment, let's say, that they've gotten exposed to, which is more than the average.
Which
Yeah.
is why, by the way, are you familiar with Burning Man?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it takes place in Zion National Park in Utah, like every, I think it's August, it's August, last week of August till September, I think. Yeah, and so I just kind of ran it by myself. Like, if this is where we are, like if this is where our people are, our political base, if you will, then we should go to these places. So like in August, I mean, I don't know what my schedule is going to be at that time, but I am going to go out to Burning Man, and if when I do, I'm going to go out wearing a shirt, like a V shirt, and
Yeah.
actually, have a boot and like maybe some
Yeah.
books
Yeah.
and stuff. So that would be really cool, because if that's where our people are, that's where we got to go. So
Well, I mean, it's one of the things that I found, like, I feel like there's pros and cons to all of these different groups that we come across. And I mean, obviously the ones, there are certain groups, let's say, that are just so far from all of the ideas that we talk about that they generally just don't engage, let's say. um, but then there's a lot of these different groups that I feel like in certain areas we overlap, and so it feels like we should be there. Um, but then it also feels like, from a practical point of view, it also feels like that there's also like a downside side to that, just from the point of view that, like what you said before, a lot of people have heard of the project, but then they have like all this distorted, scattered information about what it is, and then sometimes it's harder to kind of undo those notions to what they already have, um, as opposed to getting to, let's say, getting to know somebody that has really no idea what the project is about and just try to engage them. But so there's kind of pros and cons, I feel like, there too. A lot of people that are um, uh, I've had presentations in pretty strange places, like hippie concerts and or festivals or stuff like that. And yeah, it is a lot of what you say, and there's a lot of people that are interested and have heard about it, but then there's the downside to that is that they're usually, a lot of times, they already made whatever kind of connection with it that they have. A lot of times it's very hard to kind of,
undo
quote
that.
unquote, yeah, undo that, or set them straight or whatnot. And in addition to that, if it's kind of, depending on what kind of group it is and what kind of what kind of the general, let's say, vibe is, a lot of times they can also, they can, if they're like super spiritual, then they're too far into the realm of metaphysics, and then it's again kind of hard to talk about those things. So I feel like there's just so many pros and cons to um,
Yeah, to outreach in that kind of place. There's
yeah.
also the danger of you seeming like you're a hippie, like if you hang out with hippies. So, but
Yeah.
the
Well, I mean, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, no, I see what you mean. But yeah, it would be cool to have like some kind of an outreach thing over in Zion National Park and other places like that. So and yeah, there's also some other stuff going on all over. Like there's this Trump thing that Sasha is doing. That's pretty cool. In Russia. And then there's the thing aside in Mexico with he has some discussions and stuff over there. Yeah, there's some really cool stuff. There's some really cool stuff happening with the PLC teams.
Yeah.
Wendy had like her events were successful in Massachusetts.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, there's definitely, I'm not saying that, by no means am I discouraging that kind of activities. It's just that uh, I feel like there isn't really like a perfect, you know what I mean, like a perfect subculture of people that we should, that we should aim for. Um, we kind of have to aim at everybody in some ways. But I mean, there's ones that are just far too far out of that realm. But for the most part, why I say try anything.
Yeah, not gonna go to a Trump rally and try to do this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um.
Well,
Anyway, yeah. I mean, I have some questions, some more questions here, but they're just kind of, I guess we kind of cover them already, and they're pretty on a fairly basic level. So I think this is pretty much as as we got to cover. I think we're pretty good.
well, that's good.
Um,
I have a question for you.
yeah.
Where can I get a T-shirt?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any T-shirts left in Venus. Last time I was there, and that's one of the things that I would like to kind of organize or finance or something, so that we would have them, for people to be able to order online. But for now, we just don't. Um, and so generally, the let's say in the non-U.S. areas, where we have groups that are big enough, we just organized and printed them ourselves. And then I guess now you can also do that online. I guess if you do, like, there's people that will print like as little as 5 of them, but I guess it's probably a little bit more costly, obviously, per shirt than if you have like a set of 50 and then you sell them.
Do you have the PDN file? Like the V?
Yeah, Dean. I think Dean has all the PDF files for stuff like that. I think that's the best, to get in touch with him.
Okay. Yeah, I want to make one because I'm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm everywhere. Like I'm walking around. I should be wearing a shirt. I know Daniel. Daniel wears his for easy advertisement. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna contact him and see if I can get that file. I can make some and just have him shipped to myself.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, you can definitely do that. Ugh.
So how's the cat? Like, because I can see you, I don't see the cat, so I don't know
Yeah.
what's happening.
Well, the thing is that okay, so what we're trying to do, is we have 2 cats, 2 kittens, basically. They're 6 months old now, and we're getting them, potty trained so that they'll go on the toilet.
Yeah.
And so it's a process, and they were both doing pretty good until like the last week. One of them now is refusing to continue with her pooping where she needs to poop. So right now we have like a Mexican standoff. So
What do you do how do you control it? Like, what do you do when they
um,
poop inside her?
well, the start was pretty smooth. So basically, what you do is, there's a uh, there's like a plastic cover that fits under the toilet seat that covers the toilet completely. And
Mhm.
so it's like a little litter box that sits right on top of the toilet. And so they get used to doing their thing in there with, regular sandbox type of rules. And what you do then is progressively you start with a small hole in the middle. And then they get used to that. And then another week later, you have the hole made a little bigger, and then a little bigger, and a little bigger. And until there's only like a ring around, and then finally you remove it, and they basically just sit on the toilet, and they do their thing. So now we've gotten to the point where it's a decently big hole, but one of them, for some reason, is stopped pooping where she needs to poop and started to poop like next to the toilet on the floor. So now we're trying to correct that behavior, and it's yeah. So that's why we are right now in a Mexican standoff, or any kind of standoff, in a kitty cat standoff. So what I did is I was vigilantly waiting for her to go poop where she's not supposed to poop, and then I interrupted her, and now I closed her into the bathroom so that next time that she goes poop, I'll try and catch her and get her to poop where she needs to poop. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So now she wants to escape. And the way that I did it is like I closed the bottom half of the door so that she can't get out, but at the same time that I can see her so that she doesn't go and poop next to the toilet.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, yeah.
This is pretty tiresome game. That's why I like.
Yeah, it is.
Dogs. Well, I have a dog. The thing is, I'm a little bit more aggressive with dogs because then I can just drag.
Oh,
you can be more aggressive with dogs because they're bigger, but they and they're more responsive than cats. So, but anyway,
they are.
So what's the next phase of the process?
So the next step is I'm gonna get Bo to create an email for you, I guess. But you're not currently in Nevada, right?
Yes, I'm in Washington right now.
Okay, but you are in Nevada.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's going to be a nevada.us at TVP support email. So we'll do that, and then yeah, we'll move you basically from everything that has to do with the orientation into everything that has to do with the POC stuff. So basically, we only need to get together for like an hour. But I'll send you a message as soon as I get Bo's go ahead for the email because he has to create it.
Okay. What's the extension on the email?
At tvpsupport.com.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So so that's it. I mean, for right now, I'm just gonna leave you. I mean, for now, I'm not going to do any changes to the groups and take you out and put you in elsewhere. We can do that all at the same time when you get the email. So, so we'll just do like an hour or so, and we should be done.
Okay.
So usually it takes about maybe 2 or 3 days for Bo to respond and give me the go ahead. And so I guess one of the evenings next week, if you're still going to be available in the evening.
Yeah, I'm always available in the evening. So
Okay.
my evenings, again, you're 3 hours ahead, but I get off work usually 6:37, like that.
Okay.
That's
So that's
um
fine for me. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So yeah, and that's only gonna be an hour. So
Gotcha. All
yeah.
right. Well, yeah. Thanks a lot. Finally, this is over.
Yeah.
I've been through. I've been through the last group.
Yeah, I know.
You know.
Yeah, and then also the last 2 weeks we just played tag with all these meetings, and then I got that cold and all sorts of stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, we always do it. I'm finishing with Mark from Australia too. I think this next weekend, which has also been like going on and off for like the last year. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Mark is in 5.0 also.
yeah, yeah. So so yeah, it's been interesting. But look, for people that want to do it, and yeah, we get it done. Somehow it might take a little longer, but we get it done.
Gotcha.
All right, Bobby. Thanks. Thanks for the hangout as always. And I know that you already do so much other stuff too. So um, there's no really, there's no big fanfares for people that finished the orientation. So there's not going to be any hat throwing or anything like that, as you know. Yeah, we'll put your face on the album, of faces for TVP. So um,
Well, let me
pretty
send
much.
you a nice picture. I'm gonna be in the woods in this weekend, so I might get
Yeah.
something. Actually, you know what? Just hold up on that. I still need to get my TVP shirt, so I'll send something good.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, man. I'll let you know as soon as Bo comes back. I'll let you know, and then I don't know, maybe Wednesday, if he's gonna get to that point, by then, or something like that. So
Gotcha.
I'll shoot you a message and we'll coordinate.
All right. By the way, tell Jennifer I said hi. I see her like
Yeah.
moving back and forth, but
Yeah, she's back there now. Yeah, she's back there now.
gotcha. All right, man. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, I muted myself and I was still talking. All right,
Yeah.
yeah, that's okay. Yeah, it's because I unplugged these headphones. That's why it muted. All right. So as soon as I get that stuff, we'll just get this administration out of the way, and then we're good to go.
Gotcha. Well,
All right.
later.
All right, Bobby. Take care, man. Bye bye.